And we're live. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Today, I am also joined by my friend, Frank Agin. He is going to tell you all about himself. He is an expert on networking. So that's why I asked him to join me today so we could have a conversation about networking, about what works, what doesn't work. Feel free to post comments in the chat or questions, and we'll answer them. We're just gonna, we want this to be a big conversation around what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, and how things may be changing because of COVID. So, Frank, would you please introduce yourself, tell the watchers all about you and your business and how they can find you?
Okay, great. Well, again, my name is Frank Agin. I run an organization called Spirit Business Connections, and what we do is we create a forum, a weekly forum for entrepreneurs, sales reps, and professionals to learn about each other and exchange referrals. And I've been doing it for a long time. I stumbled on it more or less. I have a law degree and I have an MBA. I went to Ohio State University. I left, worked for a big firm, and when you work for a big firm, you're just given work to do. And I just did work and decided at one point I didn't want to work for the big firm anymore. I'm an entrepreneur at the core, and so I left and went into private practice of law. And I tell people that a funny thing happened when I went into private practice of law, and the funny thing was that nothing happened. I had no idea how to get clients. Diane, I was that bad actor at networking events, racing around, and this didn't last long, but I had lunch one day with a friend of mine, and I asked her, I said, what do I need to do to be successful? Because I don't want to go asking for my job back. I needed to reinvent myself. And she said, you need to get into a tips club or a leads group. And that's what led me into the organization I'm in now. I just showed up one February morning, 1995. Didn't really know what it was all about. But as it was being explained, it made perfect sense because I could lift my world up by lifting up the world of everybody sitting around the room. And that made sense because it's so easy. It's so easy for me to promote you, and I could do it all day long and feel exhilarated for doing it. And talk about myself and try and promote myself is exhausting in 5 minutes. And so I really took to that, and I was the chapter's first president and the organization's first franchisee. And back in 2004, I executed a buyout and purchased the organization and rebranded it as Spirit. So, it's a for-profit membership-based organization that individuals participate in. And we got chapters in Columbus, Cleveland, Akron, Canton, Boston, Chicago, Dallas, Phoenix. I mean, we're just starting to spread across the country.
Wow.
And so I continue to look for highly engaged professionals and entrepreneurs that would like to not just be in a networking group. That's the question I always ask. Do you want to be the tenant, or do you want to be the landlord? And most people want to be the landlord, and that's the whole notion. Why just pay to be in a networking group when you can become part of this system, and we'll teach you how to own networking groups? You can be the landlord. You can collect the rents. And so we continue to grow across the country and look for people who want to make more money from professional connections, want to make more money from networking, but also want to get paid to help people with professional connections. So those are the types of people we look for. As far as getting a hold of me, I always tell people I don't know if you notice this, Diane, but everybody's got a different way of communicating. I mean, some people just love to text. I got a text the other day from somebody, right? Hey, how's this going? For me, text is, hey, I have a flat tire, Dad, can you come help me? It's kind of that emergency. It's the Batmobile, the bat phone kind of a thing. And it's not, for me at least, it's not this, hey, I got to chit chat back and forth.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah, but that's me. And some people are partial to LinkedIn. They like to message on LinkedIn or Facebook. I have someone in my network that if I send an email to them, they will likely respond on LinkedIn.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and I don't think they're being obstinate about it, but they just spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
that's what they're comfortable with. And I recognize everybody's different. The reason I bring that up is because to get a hold of me, if you go to frankagin.com, frankagin.com, if you go there, it's kind of a hub to all my books. It's a hub to the organization. It's a hub to Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, lots of different ways you can get a hold of me. It just, pick your preference, and I will certainly connect with you, and I'm happy to do that. I'm an email guy. I love email because I can tag an email, right? You ask me a question. If I can't answer it now, I can put a note on it and get to it later, a reminder. It'll remind me. With LinkedIn, it's lost,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's
Yeah.
buried by the end
Yeah.
of the day. So, but that's just me. I'm not making
Yeah.
judgment on anybody else. So,
Yeah. So I want to grab onto something you said that I thought was so incredibly valuable, that you, when you went to this meeting, you realized that lifting other people up helped you raise your business up. And
yeah,
I love it if you would talk about because I think people think networking is about going and making a sale, and it's not. It
no.
really is about the other person and how can you be helpful and how much can you learn about them. So will you, share your viewpoint on that? Because
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I spend a good portion of my day purposely helping other people, connecting people to podcasts, connecting podcasts to guests, um, just introducing various people. I look at it this way. Everybody who comes into my life, right, of every, 0.1% is probably a decent candidate to be a franchisee in the organization. That's how the numbers work out.
yeah,
So 1 out of 1,000, I guess it would be, whatever. It's a small percentage, but 99.9% of the people that come across my way, I can help somehow or another. I can give them a referral to somebody in my network, make a connection. There's somebody in my network that can help them. And so I've recognized that a long time ago, and it just makes me feel better about the day because I can do these things. And the neat thing about it is that the more I connect other people, the more I help other people, they help me in return.
right.
And I don't keep score. And I'll get people who will
Yeah,
say, "Oh, I really feel bad. You've connected, 8 or 9 people. What can I do?" It's like, you know what? This is what I'm looking for. Don't put any pressure on yourself.
right.
It'll present itself when it's time to present itself, right? Um, and all that little bits of karma are out there, and it comes back. I had somebody contact me the other day, and they were like, "I am so excited. I have an opportunity for you. I'm so excited." And I just, I told her, I said, "Listen,
Finally. Yeah.
I don't keep score. I
Yeah.
don't keep score.
Yeah.
My way of looking at it is when I send somebody to you, I'm really trying to help them. You're just a piece of that puzzle, and it may help you too,
Right.
And so you can't keep score. So that's really kind of been my mindset. And
Yeah.
you know what? It's easy to look at that and say, well, you're a fool because it doesn't always work out. There are people who will take advantage of you. There
Oh,
are people who will just it's hard for them to figure it out. They never really kind of make the connection, and that's okay, right? That's okay. I've
yeah.
helped them, and maybe they help somebody else that helps somebody else, and it kind of works its way around. And
Right. It's not
so
a one for one, right?
no,
It's
no,
not I give you, you give me. It's if we're all in a giving spirit,
yeah,
then it revolves back around when it's supposed to, when it makes sense.
yeah. Well, it's like money, right? You go to the store or you go to the farmer's market and you spend money. You know, you buy whatever they have.
Right.
They don't need what you have. I used to be an
Right.
attorney. They don't need an attorney. They don't need
Yeah.
anything I have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we've had a fair exchange. But they'll take that money then and they'll say, you know what? I need to go and I need to buy a new saddle for the horse, and then they go to the saddle shop and they buy that, and the saddle shop owner's like, you know what? I got plenty of vegetables or whatever it is. I don't need that stuff, but I'm going to take this money and I'm going to go do whatever.
Right.
And then they're talking to somebody, and then one day that person's saying, oh, you know what? I need to get an attorney. And so those dollars come back to the attorney or who,
Yeah.
so that's how I look at doing things for people. Is it just kind of makes its way around. You're adding resources to the economy. And so I don't ever judge what somebody's doing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even, but I do judge whether they're doing something for somebody.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there are selfish people out there, and it's hard for me to get excited about selfish people. But if somebody's out there and doing things for other people, it's like, oh my gosh, that's coming back to me somehow. I don't know how, but it's coming back to me. And so I need to support that somehow, some way. So.
And I mean, what I hear you saying, which I feel as well, is it's more enjoyable to be with other people who like to give, who
Yep.
care about other people, than are so self-focused. Because when they're self-focused, all they're doing is talking about themselves. They're not listening to, it's boring.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, well, thanks. I could read your literature. This isn't an exchange of ideas or information, or it doesn't add anything to the greater good.
No, it's depleting is really what it is.
Yes, that's a good word.
Yeah, it's depleting.
Right.
And there's certainly lots of analogies, but it's just, if you continue to buy into that, you'll end up with nothing.
Right.
But most of us don't. Most of us are smart enough that we'll kind of do something else. When I was practicing law, there was a guy, I didn't do a lot of courtroom stuff. And so he did a lot of courtroom stuff. And I would send him, hey, here's a guy who's got a DUI. He needs representation. And at one point in our conversation, he let it be known. He says, listen, I will probably never, ever give you a referral because I can do all you can do too. And I don't keep score. So I wasn't mad, but I just made the determination that, you know what, there are a lot of other trial attorneys out there that don't do what I do. And I would be better served to feed them.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And again, I'm not keeping score, but I would be a fool to just keep giving to this, knowing that, hey, I'll never do anything for you. It's like, okay,
right, right,
his
yeah,
loss.
yeah, no kidding, right.
But the point is, I didn't stop giving, right?
Right,
I just altered who I was giving to.
right.
And in my mind, that's okay. Maybe somebody out there would have a problem with that, but that's just, we need to help other people, but we need to survive too.
Exactly.
So
well, and you want to help people who help people, right? Who look at it and say, I mean, like this morning I was in a meeting, and I was in two meetings this morning, and in one there were two people who could potentially do some of the same things, but it was so interesting listening to them talk about, well, here, I would be happy to turn this over to you and have you handle this and back the other way. And I just thought, see, that's when you can look above revenue.
Right.
And you're thinking about the long-term success of your business, and that relationships really matter and help that along, and that you will get fed if you're not so hyper-focused on just revenue.
Yeah. Well, and it's a trust, right? I mean, the person who's giving it up has to trust that it's going to come back. Back to this story with this attorney, he basically said, you know what? Your trust is wasted. Your trust is wasted.
Yeah.
In so many words. And he's a nice guy. I've run into him. He's a nice guy. Yeah, it's not anything personal. But you want to put things out there, and you hope that somehow or another it can make it back to you. And in that situation, it's just a trust. And I have lots of relationships like that. We have that relationship. It's a trust thing.
Right.
You need help, reach out. You know what? you're bringing your social capital to me and spending it on X, and I'll spend it elsewhere, or I might come to
Right.
you and my social capital on something totally unrelated.
Right.
And it works. It all works.
Right. Exactly. Because there's no, yeah, it's a trust thing. It's an understanding too that we're gonna help each other when and if it makes sense, right? That it's not a forced sort of thing, because then you really don't want to do it.
No.
And this other meeting I was in this morning, it, I was working with a client, and one of the things I ended up saying to them was, what if you just approached every single conversation with, I need to build my bench, right? I
Yep.
need to build my toolbox, not I need to sell, I need to sell. Just, I just need to go out there and build my toolbox, because then I will be genuinely interested in learning about other people and finding out who's good and who I can trust and who I'm going to walk past, and who's just too solely focused on revenue and whatever. And I'm going to build this incredible toolbox. And through that process,
Right.
I end up building my business. But that's not my focus when I go and do these things. What do you think about that?
No, I think that's great advice. I had a conversation with a financial advisor um, out in New York, big time financial advisor, and we were kind of having this conversation, and she relayed to me that it was hard to have conversations, to keep in touch in a COVID world. We've kind of
Yeah.
been, socially distanced, stuck at home, however you want to term it.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to just continually have conversations with my clients. And my response to her was, you know what? It's not. Stop having conversations about what you do. I challenge you to call up your clients and just say, listen, you know what I do. You know what? I don't want to talk about that. How are you? I don't know, I don't really know a whole lot about you personally. You don't know a whole lot about me personally. Can we just have 15 minutes just to kind of get on one another's, to take it to that level?
Yeah.
Um, and that's all you do.
Yeah.
Don't close it with, oh, by the way, or anything like that. Just that's all it is. And it may seem
Yeah.
like a total waste of time, but it's not.
Right.
It's interesting. I share that. I read a study that was done in 1965. Now in 65, women stayed home. We're it was a sexist world, right? We're progressing. I don't want to
Yeah.
get into this, but it was the reason I say that, it was a study involving men.
Okay.
I grew up in that world. My dad worked, my mom stayed at home.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a study done with men, and what they did was they had a gentleman go to work, and he would work side by side for 8 hours a day with another guy. And then he would go home and he would live with another guy. And so they were roughly spending 8 hours a day at work, 8 hours a day at home, watching TV, doing, whatever they, do in their apartment. And what they did then was they assessed the level of relationship that these two parties had. And the people that had the the social life or the personal life had a much better relationship, because they started tapping into things. Can you imagine they're watching baseball? Oh, I remember when I was a kid, my dad coached my t-ball team, and I wanted to be a relief pitcher, and he wouldn't let me pitch. He made me be the catcher, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And so it helped them develop a better relationship. And so that, the lesson there is that you need to try and have these personal conversations with people to find out about them, because it deepens the relationship.
Yeah.
And our brains are hardwired that when we have these sorts of conversation, trust is built that much faster.
Right. Right. I know it's, thank you so much for that. It's so, and I think it's easier for people to do. As you said, trying to sell all the time is exhausting, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have to be
Yeah.
on, you have to be this person, you have to think about how you're speaking, you have to do all of this stuff. If you're just being genuinely interested in someone else, you're just having a conversation,
Right.
right? and you're learning something, and then maybe they're learning something about you that isn't about what you do. So, if we engage in that way and we are just curious, this is what we want to know. It's
Right.
amazing the people who we meet.
Yeah. Well, it takes all the pressure off.
Yeah.
Um, and people will challenge me on this and like, well, I need to make sales.
Yeah.
I know you do. I
Uh-huh.
know you need to make sales.
Right.
It doesn't mean the next person you meet is the target, right?
Right. Right.
Get a relationship with them. If you want
Yeah.
to, if you're going to try and close a sale, worry about the person you met 60 days ago.
Right.
But I mean, that's where
Right.
it's hard on the front end. If you're kind of in sales, you've really you got to build that base,
Yeah.
and you're not going to do it 8 hours a day.
No.
It's going to take a lot. It's 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day, and then you kind of build that momentum, and it gets easier in time.
Yeah.
But if you think in the short run, I'm just going to go to the networking event and just hit everybody hard,
Yeah.
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 Well,
You're crazy.
yeah, my situation's different. I need to make a sale. Everybody needs to make a sale. Your situation is no different,
No. No, it is not. So let me ask you a question, because you mentioned this whole pandemic, and things are definitely different. We're
Yep.
not having in-person things yet again.
Right.
Um, things are definitely changing. So for those people who are trying to figure out how to start new relationships. I mean, you talked about this gal who you were
Right.
talking to, where you're like, just call and just talk to them. Do you have advice on that? Like what you would suggest people do?
As far as like reaching out to people they don't know, or
Yeah. Starting
um,
conversations.
yeah, I have become incredibly busy since this whole lockdown started. And it's all with people I have not met before.
Oh,
It's all, over Zoom. I mean, you and I've never met face to face,
right.
right?
I know. Yeah.
I could be 5'3". You don't know, right? You
Yeah.
don't know anything about me. I walked past him. I didn't realize he
And
was so
I wouldn't
short.
care.
Yeah, no, I know. But my point, you know, you know, emails are better than texts, right?
Yeah.
A telephone conversation is much better than an email. A Zoom call is much better than a telephone conversation. I find
Yeah.
they just go on that much longer. And then an in-person meeting is probably the best of all. But
Yeah.
but I but Zoom calls are pretty good. These kind of face-to-face interactions are good. I have a franchisee who's out in the Boston area. I I just met him for the first time in early March. We had
Wow.
been
Really?
we had been talking for a year
Yeah.
doing Zoom. You know, it wasn't weird at all. It was like I picked him up and it was like, yeah, we just kind of, like, yeah, he's a brother, whatever. Good to
Yeah.
see you.
Yeah.
It's like I knew him.
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess my advice to people is reach out and just say, hey, I would love an opportunity to get to know you. I'd love 15 minutes to, no agenda. I
Yeah.
have no agenda.
Right.
I'm not going to talk about me or what I do, or maybe I'll just mention it, but nothing leading. I want to hear about you, and hopefully you'll hear about me, learn about
Yeah.
me, and let's just see where it goes.
Yeah.
And those aren't a waste of time. They're
No.
um, and so I've become very busy with those sorts of things. And well, I've invited you to a call tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm really looking forward to it.
So it's going to be great because these are all people who are like you, Diane, who get the networking thing, who talk about the networking thing, who have podcasts. And many of these people I have met in the last, 60, 90 days that are, wow, these are really neat people, and they're connecting me to people and I'm connecting them to people, much as you and I have done. And, um, I've gotten to know these people. I've gotten to hopefully earn their trust. I trust them. I can't speak to what they feel about me.
I'll find
Um,
out.
yeah, right. Um, there you go. Um, but it's all just been kind of through these calls. There's one woman you'll meet tomorrow night, Berta. She's down in Miami, Florida. My son's in Miami, Florida. We've had a number of great conversations. She's like, if your son ever needs help, I'm a mama bear. I will help him. It's like, oh, that is so
So
cool.
great.
Yeah.
So
Now
great.
he thinks that's weird, but
Of course.
as a parent, you're like, hey, that's great, right?
Yes.
Um, and we've never met face to face, you know?
Yeah, but you see, because it business networking, when we remember that it's just people getting to know people,
Yeah,
it transcends just that business relationship, so that it really is, as you get to know people, you get to genuinely like them, and then you care about them, and then you have that bond, I guess it is, and maybe it's those of us who have been doing this for a while, and really and
yeah,
appreciate the similarities, right? That there are
yeah,
things that we have in common, and parenting's one of them. And you
yeah,
know, like I'm going through some stuff with my mom right now, and there's so many people who, boy, they just get it, right? Because they're going through stuff with their
yeah,
parents, and so that just further enhances the relationship, because then you understand each other on a whole other level.
yeah. No, well, what I always tell people is this: we only have one brain. There's one brain in our head. It doesn't have a special compartment for professional, right? It's one brain. And so it sees trust the same way, whether
Yeah,
it's a personal, intimate relationship or a business relationship. It sees betrayal the same way. It sees all these things the same way. So if people are ever wondering, well, how should I act? You know what? How would you act in a romantic relationship? How would you act with a friend?
right.
There's the answer to your question.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I love that. And I like to say to people, listen, this business relationship building really is like dating. Like, you might know on your first date that you're going to marry them, but you still date them for a while. You just like,
Right.
you have to get to know them. And it's the same with
Right.
networking, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So interesting. Oh my gosh, Frank, I so appreciate you spending this time with me. I have picked up so many little nuggets of information that really resonated with me through this. Um, and this will be, we'll put it on LinkedIn, and it'll live on Facebook and wherever. Parting shots, parting tip that you want to give to anybody who watches this.
Oh, this is the one I love to give because people come to me all the time. Hey, how should I get started networking? And I don't like to go to events. What should I do? My advice is this: find something you're passionate about and go volunteer, because
That's
that'll do
great.
two things for you. The first thing it'll do, it thrusts you out of your world into being elbow to elbow with other people who are thrust out of their world to care about the same thing. And you never have to talk about business. It'll come up in time, but you never
Yeah.
have to do it. That's the first thing it does. But the second thing it does is it sends a signal to the whole world, people inside that organization and people outside, that you're selfless, right? That you're
Yeah.
willing to help other people. And that will help further trust with them, even if they are not related to that at all. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you're involved with the animal hospital. That's great, or whatever, the Humane Society. That's
Yeah.
great. It just elevates in their mind. So volunteering is huge.
So I so love that. I even wrote it down. I think that is so great. I'm going to add one caveat to that, because I've seen people do this and it's not good. Don't go volunteer because you think you're going to be able to sell to the other volunteers,
Yeah,
right?
that's, yeah,
You got to do it because it's something you're passionate about, as you
yep,
said. It's something that you're interested in, and you're just going to dig in, and you're going to have a shared experience with the other volunteers.
yeah. I go. I don't even bring cards. I don't break them out. I don't talk about what I do. I figure if people really want to know, they'll find out, and they
Right,
do, and they
right,
do.
right. Naturally, right?
Yeah, yeah.
With their own steam.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you again. I
Thank
so
you.
appreciate this. And I've got your frankagin.com in the comments so people can get a hold of you. And I'll, have it in the other comments as well. Thanks for being my first guest on a Succeed Without Selling Salon. I
Well,
appreciate it.
thanks. I didn't realize this was the first. This is awesome.
How
All
great
right.
is that, right?
Hey, you know what? You can take anything else away from me. You can never take that away from me.
Exactly. Thanks, Frank.
All
Bye,
right. Have a good day.
everybody.
Bye bye.